All right, welcome in. A very happy Thursday to you. It's Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri alongside the one and only Mr. Craig Mish as we've got some afternoon baseball undergoing right now. Two games, in fact, in extra innings, if you can believe that. Yankees trying not to throw the ball away and the game away, much like they did yesterday. Right now, that game 1-0. They are in the bottom of the 10th with the White Sox, and the Cubs and Cardinals also second game back-to-back in extra innings. That game is tied 2-2 right now, top of the 10th. Both the Cubs and the Yankees, Craig, yesterday lost in epic fashion in extra innings, and they are trying to right that ship now. Both these bullpens look a little taxed here, but you got to love a little afternoon extra baseball, I guess, if you're in St. Louis and Chicago right now.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd have any live action during our show at all, Joe. It's great to be with you once again. I thought that a lot of the games would be completed, but I guess from the Yankees' perspective, the last 24 hours, we have realized that, yes, they probably do need another catcher to add to their team because poor Ali Sanchez has had, and I've watched Ali Sanchez play. I've never spoke to him in person, but I've seen him play. And catchers, as you know, Joe, they hang around a long time. Like, they bounce around. You can be 40 and still be a backup catcher. Sanchez is not that, and he's going to have a really hard time now. And my guess is the Yankees will add someone, and then they'll bid farewell to Ali, which is not nice, but that's just the reality of what's going on. He's not doing very well since he's been there. And then for the Cardinals today, it was, really the same guy who's propelled them this season. We know that Jordan Walker's had a great year, Joe. But when you have a rookie like J.J. Weatherholt, who's had the year that he's had, he hit a home run late in this game off a left-handed relief pitcher. It just shows you how good this kid is. So we have both games tied at 2. And then, of course, the most exciting final today, without a doubt, is something that's only happened 35 times in the history of baseball. We saw a team down 3-0 in the 9th inning, down to their last out, and a walk-off grand slam. You just don't see that 35 times in history. Cody Clemens ended up doing that. Of course, Roger Clemens' son. And by the way, Cody Clemens is pretty good. Like out of nowhere, the last couple of years, he's really become like almost an everyday player in the big leagues. And I did not think that he was, but he definitely has been. Kind of keeps the Twins alive, Joe. Makes the Twins feel a little bit more excited. I'm, as we talked about, not very big on them, but this is the kind of game that, the players are excited. The front office is excited. They kind of feel like they're, getting a little bit on a roll. And here we are. About 4 days away from the trade deadline. Maybe the Twins feel like they can hang into this thing. But, that's why betting on sports, though, Joe, is tough. Like, I don't know if you had anything on that game today, but I was kind of thinking when he hit the grand slam, like, oh, my gosh, imagine having the other side in that game. Like, oh, it's got to be brutal.
I can't imagine what Noah Cameron feels like, who goes out there and throws 8 innings of just domination there for Kansas City. I mean, he was good, and then, the wheels fell off. And by the way, I mean, Urseg's supposed to be the closer. No, that isn't good. Matt Stramp, no, that didn't work out either.
Strong,
2
today.
outs, by the way. That is just 2 outs to give up a walk-off grand slam is just, it's head-scratching here.
You know what? I know that a lot of folks who are watching us and streaming us aren't particularly interested in the Kansas City Royals, so we're not going to waste 2 hours on them. But if you've watched Royals baseball, and again, I'm like Joe, I don't know that I'm quite the sicko like Joe, where because I'm covering one team and I'm working on the broadcast one team, like when I ask Joe, hey, what games did you watch? I haven't talked to Joe in a few days. He's like, games? I've watched every game. I'm like, what, buddy? Like, seriously? Like, Joe's like a sicko. So like me, I watch a couple, after working in baseball all season long. It's like today, I feel like I get a day off. But what I'm trying to say here in a long-winded way is that nobody's really watching the Royals. But if you did, and Joe has, so he knows, the Royals bullpen has been the worst. They've been the very worst, I think. And people talk about the Pirates and some other teams. Joe, the Royals bullpen has cost them, I'm going to say 10 to 15. Somebody said 20 blown saves. You never know how that's going to go. 10 games probably, I would say it's cost the Royals this season.
Brutal. But to your point, Clemens has been actually very good for
19 home runs.
Minnesota. And I mean, what else can you go wrong? I mean, he'd spent some time in the minor leagues. They thought that, all right, well, we're cutting It's time to cut bait with some of the higher contract guys. He had an opportunity, and now they can't get rid of him. So, I mean, kudos to him. I love stories like that. And yes, we know who his dad is, but, most people don't even know there's another Clemens in Major League Baseball right now, and he's holding his own, that's for sure. But 4-3, Twins win that one in epic fact, given the fact that I think they had gone 17. They got shut out yesterday in that Kansas City game. They went another 8 innings without scoring a run today. So 17 straight innings, and they walk it off with a grand slam home run. What a cruel game Major League Baseball can be. Yankees, by the way, White Sox tied it up, so now they are still, I believe, in the bottom of the 10th, first and second right now for the White Sox. And I do believe the Cubs just got a big hit there. So 4-2 Cubs in the top of the 10th. Cardinals still have to come up there in that one. So a little extra baseball. We'll see how much longer these games go here. But we do have some good ones still to come here tonight, including Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Your Marlins, I think, is a pretty interesting set for them coming up here as well. Craig, against the Mets tonight. I think maybe the pitching battle of the night with Yuri Perez against Nolan McLean. McLean's a Oklahoma State, former Oklahoma State Cowboy there. But I don't know how many runs we're getting in this one. The market's down to 7. But I was very impressed with Yuri Perez against the Padres there. They didn't feel like they wanted to go to the bullpen in that game. Maybe left them out a little bit longer than they should have, but there's no doubt he's got more than enough stuff to limit this Mets lineup here tonight.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting game. As soon as we're off the air, that's what I'll go to. And, naturally on the shows that I do, I don't talk Marlins betting, but I would say that the one thing to watch, at least for me tonight as a viewer, and that would go for anybody who's watching tonight, is that Yuri Perez, that Joe has mentioned, he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last month and a half. That's absolutely true. His last start, he was really good, but he didn't strike anybody out, Joe. It was really strange. Like they had him changing his arsenal a little bit. So I don't really know what we're going to get tonight against the Mets. I'm not sure. They play 4 games in New York, Joe. I don't think the Marlins' plans are going to change. I think that they're going to kind of stand pat and hope that this group that got them to this point can take them to the postseason. Maybe they'll trade a player or two, but I don't think it's going to be anything significant. But I get asked a lot today on social media, like, what if, and I don't know how you feel about this, but what if the Marlins were to go 4-0 this weekend? If they were to go, because every series has been a sweep that they've been involved in one way or the other. I tend to think that this series is not going to be a sweep one way or the other. A 4-game series is a rare sweep by one team. So I think the Marlins have a good chance to win 3 out of 4 here, but I would assume, Joe, that the Mets are actually playing better. Like I started looking into them a little bit today because, again, covering the Marlins, it seems to me, Joe, even without Soto, they're starting to pitch a little better. Their bullpen's starting to get a little better too, and some of the hitters are starting to come along. And would it shock anybody, Joe, if from this point forward the Mets played 500 baseball all season, still finishing 10 under, 15 under? I think it could happen. So I think it'll be a competitive series. And Joe, you watched those games, last 3 against Philly and Miami. Guess what? 1-run game, 1-run game, 1-run game, 1-run game. Yeah, it's going to be a tight series against the Mets this weekend.
I had, the Mets have just underperformed. We all know that. I was impressed with the doubleheader. Yes, they won game 1, 3-2, keeping in mind they don't have Soto, right? And they went toe-to-toe with Sale, a 1-0 game.
They did. It was close game.
That was great last night. I just can't get over the wild swings with the you go
it's unbelievable.
20 wins in the month of June, you lose 12 in a row. Now they're going to rattle off another 8 wins in a row. You gotta love Major League Baseball. It is such a game of streaks, and it feels like the Marlins are just one of those streaky teams this year where when they're going good, they're going great. When it goes bad, it goes bad. We'll see what happens here tonight. We got much more Major League Baseball to talk about, some NFL action as well as game time decisions. Getting ready to go here on a Thursday on the SportsGrid Network. Come back and join us here on the Grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I can't believe it, July the 30th.
We're
As
there.
we've got, it's August is here. We're
Football time.
10, 11 days from our first football game. And just like that, it is back. We got a lot, by the way. All the camps are open here. Guys reporting. We're learning a lot of guys, big name players not available to participate at this point. But hopefully health will get better as we move along here. We've got still some disgruntled quarterbacks. I'm talking to you, Baker Mayfield, in Tampa Bay, which is never a good thing. But hopefully we start to get more positive news from guys like, hey, Patrick Mahomes, who, it's never easy to come back from blowing a knee out, but that's exactly what he is doing. Daniel Jones, same thing, blows out an Achilles in December.
Yep.
They're anticipating him to be good to go. And then, of course, there's Tua, who can't play yet for reasons we still don't know.
I did read into that. After we were done with the show. Okay, so after we were done with the show, I did make a couple calls and texts, and then this morning I read exactly what we talked about. And my understanding is that this is nothing. That's what it sounds like. It is really nothing. It is just them being overly cautious. It is the first week of training camp. I think, Joe, it sounds like he's absolutely going to play in the preseason. Maybe not the first game, but definitely the second game. So that's what I heard. And this is from people who don't care one way or the other. So, be that as it may, another week of no Tua, starting to freak out a little bit, and then back on the field. First preseason game goes by. Second preseason game comes, Joe. Tua's practicing, plays in that game. Then we all ask the question: is he ready to go for the? Did he play enough? So that's kind of the way that it's trending. But it is a back. I mean, you don't know, and you don't know with this guy. And you're right. The other question I wanted to ask you before we get into like heavy game stuff is that. Certainly you and I have been doing this a long time, and we've been hosting together for a long time too. Did it feel like this summer, it felt like for the first time in a really long time, and maybe just 4 years because of the World Cup previously, Joe, it felt like there was no lull in summer sports to me for the first time in a really long time. Even when we had the World Cup 4 years ago, because it wasn't here and the games were like being played overnight, I didn't really feel that way, but I felt like we went straight through from the football season to the college basketball season to the opening day of Major League Baseball, then maybe a little bit of a pause, in May, and then all of a sudden June, the World Cup started talking. We got into that in July. It felt like if we got any lull, to be honest, it's like right now. It was like 1 week, and that's basically it. And then training camps open. I don't know. I mean, you've been at this just as long as me. I don't know how you felt about it, but sports, and there's always something to bet on. I understand that, but I'm just saying realistically, the country here in the United States that bets on sports, that watches sports, I don't feel like they took a pause almost at all this year. I don't know if that feels accurate to you or not.
It does, but I also think I was just having this conversation the other week, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that look at what has happened just over the last year. Besides most recently World Cup, you had Olympics, you had you had the World Baseball Classic. We have had an awful lot of events, right? I mean, on the world stage where it just feels like it's all been one consistent, unbelievable, no time to breathe, rest. And oh yeah, by the way, it's August and welcome back football. But I think a lot of that has to do with maybe the attention and, all the Olympic stuff, the World Cup stuff, the, World Baseball. Think about all of that we have had over the last 12 months. It's kind of been, it's been a little overwhelming, has it not? And I mean, don't forget baseball. Baseball started with the World Baseball Classic, so it feels like
I forgot about that.
Baseball started in February. It really does.
Like that. Yeah, that big event too. It just and again, next year we will not have the Olympics, we will not have the WBC, and we will not have the World Cup. So maybe it'll feel a little bit different. Right? Don't say that. Don't say that. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. We will have baseball. What am I going to be doing? Belarus handball, like you said? No, I'm not doing that.
That's correct.
So I think some people, when I say that, they respond, well, there's always something to bet on. And look, I get that if you're a degenerate. Yes, I understand. But the average person is going to bet on football some, they're going to bet on baseball some, basketball. And, maybe the other thing, too, is that the prediction markets are now, for the first time in our history, it feels like almost as popular as the betting markets, too. So there's always something to pop on if you feel a certain way about something. I myself follow the prediction markets, and I have the apps. I don't do anything with them, and I just follow the way that things are going to go. But to your point, to kind of tie a bow on this entire conversation, no, I'm not going to be betting on preseason. But it definitely for me, the football talk begins with people like us, but it really begins when that first NFL preseason game happens. Like, everyone is watching and then turning off after the first 5 minutes, but everyone is watching that first 5 minutes of that Hall of Fame game like, wow, football's back. And then you realize, oh my gosh, the preseason is so bad. And then we turn it off. But yes, I think that that's kind of the rite of passage when football really begins.
A lot of non-sports fans have been treated over the last year to a lot of sporting events on the biggest stages with some of the biggest names. So it's been an interesting year, that is for sure. And now it all comes full circle. And I mean, we're 30 days away. I mean, week 0 of college football is the last week in August. So we are 3.5 weeks away from absolute craziness here when it's all said and done. So, and listen, we still got a trade deadline coming up on Monday in Major League Baseball. Who is going to win? Who's not? Who's going to be a seller? Who's going to be a buyer? Still a lot to be determined here. A lot of teams vying for some postseason life. And will they go on a run? This month of August is going to be fascinating in Major League Baseball. All while we're trying to get ready, of course, once again, for college football and the start of the NFL season. And don't look now. Yeah, that means the NBA, the NHL, and college basketball not that far off either. So no sleep for the weary here. We've got plenty more to go here. By the way, still in the extra innings, 1-1, bottom of the 11th, Yankees and the White Sox. And I think the Cubs just closed it out 4-2. Over the Cardinals in 10 innings. That's probably it for the Cardinals. I think that's it for the Cardinals. More coming up here on Game Time Decisions.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. Good to see the Yankees just kicking the ball around the infield. That's always fun there. But it is tied 1-1 in the 11th. The Yankees have done a fantastic job, I believe, 1 of 14 with runners in scoring position. Bases loaded for the White Sox, 1 out. We'll let you know how this goes. It has been a rough series here, although the Yankees won the first 2 games, lost last night in epic fashion.
Right.
And they're on the verge of a split here with the White Sox. And just like that, Craig, the White Sox very much alive, very much, in the Central fighting. What a turnaround. Hey, all things being equal, the White Sox end up making the postseason this year. Might be one of the most unbelievable turnarounds that we have seen in a very, very long time here. I would put it on par with, that's like waking up and be like, hey, the Rockies are in playoff. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing what they've done here in just 12 to 16 months.
Yeah, if you think about it, Joe, the last time that we thought the White Sox were going to be like this was, I'm going to go back probably 4 or 5 years ago when, if you remember, Tony La Russa was the manager for a year for the White Sox, Joe. Do you remember that? Eloy Jimenez and Yoan Moncada and Luis Robert, right? Like, those were the guys that were going to take the White Sox into the next period of greatness. That never happened. They got rid of all of them. And the way that I would summarize the White Sox a little bit amongst Major League Baseball fans is pretty anonymous. They don't have a lot of players that the average fan can name, and their pitching staff, Joe, which has been very good, and I know Burke pitched very well today, a lot of people don't know who these guys are. Like Davis Martin. It's like where did they even find a lot of these guys? So it leads me to believe that there's some regression maybe coming for them. I do think Cleveland is better than them, and I do think Cleveland's going to win the division. But to your point, Will Venable may win Manager of the Year in the American League. I think if they make the playoffs, he will. But I don't see them as a major threat. What's really impressive also for them is that the offense, which was so good April and May, they lost Murakami and hung around for a while. Like, Murakami may have been the best signing of anybody this offseason, but when he was out, they hung around because this kid Colson Montgomery was so good too. So maybe, Joe, I just don't think, and I'm not asking the White Sox to make crazy moves here in the next couple days, but without that, Joe, do you really think they're as good as Cleveland? I don't. I think the Guardians are better. And so, but I could see it battling to the end. But you're right. Credit to them. Even if they only win 83, 84 games, still a surprise season.
And they're in the thick of it, and nobody gave them a shot. It's a very good story, and it's what baseball is all about, is giving teams an opportunity to turn around in a year. And, nobody say you're not going to win 100 games, but you know what? You're in the postseason. You're playing extra baseball, which can't be said for a lot of other teams that have been absolutely horrific. So, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, like, I have to go back to the last time the White Sox were good. I thought you were going to say, like, Greg Lazinski. I thought you were really going to go back there.
Thomas?
So, Thomas, like, I was like, how far back is he going to go here with this one? But no.
Joe, don't you remember? You remember when they had Eloy Jimenez and Moncada? Like, that wasn't that long ago, 2020, 2021. They had Chris Sale too, right? But that's how they got. But that's how they got Moncada, and I don't remember all the guys in that deal. But I know that they got a bunch of guys in that deal too. But since then, remember also 2 years ago they fired Kenny Williams, who was their GM for like 20 years, and they brought in Chris Getz. He was getting ripped apart in the media. Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, Getz is in line to be executive of the year too. That Murakami signing, Joe, is huge. One that like the Yankees in particular, I hate talking about the Yankees all the time, but the Yankees in particular got to be kicking themselves, man. Like that was a perfect guy for that park, and he didn't even get a lot of money to play with them. Like what did he get for the White Sox? 2 years, $20 million or something like that. Like, this guy's $100 million player. It looks like. Yeah. So
exactly.
So anybody could have signed
really
him.
Good.
White Sox did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the White Sox got him, and you know what? It's a great signing and puts them on the board, and you got to love it here. Listen, I think it'd be great if Pittsburgh can make the postseason. I don't think they will, but I think you want to talk about an organization. I mean,
who do you got in the NL?
Listen, they're going to have a shot, right? But if they do pull it off, I think that's another great story. How are these teams making now? It either says that the postseason's a joke because teams like Pittsburgh and the White Sox shouldn't probably be playing postseason baseball.
True.
But listen, don't hate the player, hate the game. You know what I mean? It is what it is. They can only go by it.
Right, with the Pirates, Joe. Though I think it's a little different. I want you to get back to the action, but with the Pirates, it's a little different. Let's also call it what it is. They signed Ryan O'Hearn to a 2-year contract. He's been really good for them.
Good point.
They traded for Brandon Lau from Tampa Bay. He's been better than him. So look, I mean, they made the right moves that pushed them to this point.
The Yankees just walked in the winning run. Unbelievable.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in game time decisions, rather, here on the SportsGrid Network, as we just finished up two of the earlier games from today. Both went to extra innings. The Cubs bounced back, beat the Cardinals. The Yankees made it to 11 innings, tied 1-1, and then proceeded to walk the winning run in on 4 straight pitches. Cruz, that was a fantastic job. So White Sox get a nice comeback. I mean, they were down 2-0 in a 4-game set against the Yankees. They win the final 2. They split it. Now very much in the postseason conversation here. Yankees, the bats, they better hope that Monday deadline comes by and they can add some sort of bat to that lineup, because 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position, not likely going to get it done. What you mentioned, the Cardinals with this loss, it's been a tale of two halves here, right? Even if you want to call the All-Star break the half. There was, the Cardinals of May and June that I didn't expect them to win as many games as they had to begin with. And then there's kind of the Cardinals here from about mid-July to where we are now, and they have just they're kind of playing themselves out of the conversation. But it's not easy with the Cardinals because I don't know who they would sell or even who they might buy or go at. That pitching staff, you're not beating anybody with that pitching staff one way or the other. So the Cardinals, if anything, feels like, are they just going to stand pat? Is that kind of what they're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's really not the right move for them. I think that their odds are under like 10% now, maybe, to make the playoffs with this loss. And look, I mean, the reason why they signed Dustin May was to do exactly what he's done and then trade him. And now, Joe, are they really going to keep him for the rest of the season? And I guess if the CBA stays the same, then they could offer him the qualifying offer. But Joe, they're talking about getting rid of the qualifying offer in baseball at the end of the season too. So like, I think that has to be part of the conversation. Look, I believe in Chaim Bloom. I believe that Craig Breslow right now in Boston, Joe, is reaping the benefits of everything that Chaim Bloom did. I mean, the Red Sox, all these players and everything that they have and all these trades that they can make are because Chaim Bloom rebuilt this farm system. Chaim Bloom got fired because he traded Mookie Betts for nothing. And we all understand that. And I'm sure Chaim Bloom understands that, Joe, that trade didn't work out. And because they traded a generational player for nothing, he lost his job. I think that's BS. I think he did a good job in Boston. I think he's going to do a good job in St. Louis. It's a tough spot to be in if you're him, because he fully expected this team to be 5-6 games under, making trades and trading for the future. Instead, they've been around 500. So long story short, if I'm him, Dustin May is playing on another team in a week. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm not completely punting the season, but I definitely am trading anybody that I can to get value back that may not be able to re-sign next year. So if I'm him, I'm making a deal.
I agree. I think now's the time. If you're going to do it, now is the time. We kind of felt like the Cardinals were going to be in one of those transition years anyway, and that would be, like you said, Dustin May is exactly the kind of guy. Get some return back for the effort that you put in there, because my goodness, it feels like there would be some teams that will always overreact and probably overpay and look to help the Cardinals here by getting him. And to his credit, remember when he first came in with the Dodgers? I mean, there was some hype around him in a big way.
Massive.
Did some injuries, had to kind of change his philosophy, where he was going, what he was doing, didn't work out. And then he comes to the Cardinals, and all of a sudden, my goodness, he's been one of the most steadiest pitchers that they have had. And that's going to get noticed by teams who are contending. They're going to have offers on him, are they not?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's not a star, and he's not going to start game one of a playoff game, or maybe even game two. But, he's cheap in terms of money, and he seems like look, he's not going 8 innings, but he seems like a solid 5-inning pitcher that can help you in the postseason chase. And if his ERA is around late 3s, early 4s, Joe, and he can stay healthy, he may be able to pitch in an ALCS or NLCS out of the bullpen, or maybe even game 4 or game 5. What's wrong with that? And that's a good point you mentioned. He was with the Dodgers. He was thought to be a superstar, right? Like it was, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was him as a pitcher, and remember Gavin Lux, that was the hitter. They had those two guys. Those are the two guys that were going to carry them, and neither of them really worked out. I think Gavin Lux is actually in Tampa Bay. I don't think he's played much at all this year, but yeah, I think it's hard because the Cardinals fans, Joe, they still show up at Busch. They have such a great fan base, and then now you're sending this message like, like it's over, this tarps off stuff, that's done. No one, we're not having fun anymore here. I understand it, but it is the right baseball move, because in that National League Central, and we certainly can look at the Cubs and Brewers, are not going to beat those teams out. So it's just the wild card, Joe. And I don't think they're beating out the Cubs for the wild card. And I don't think they're beating, I'm going to still throw the Phillies out there. That's the American League Central, by the way, guys. I don't think they're beating the Phillies for the wild card. I think they'll get it going eventually. And then, Joe, it comes down to, do you think the Cardinals are better than the Marlins? Do you think they're better than the Padres? Do you think they're better than the Diamondbacks? I think all those 3 teams that I mentioned are better than St. Louis. So and Pittsburgh. So I think there's too many teams to climb for me. Too many.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And listen, I think Marvel's done a great job there in St. Louis, given, what he's got here, as they tried to get some of those aging contracts gone. Got a lot of young talent there, but now might be the time to say, all right, let's play for next year. And by the way, earlier today, Tampa beats Texas 3-2. Cedric Mullins, who I was just inquiring about, in fact, it's a home run, I think, to win it in the game, 3-2 there. But Shane McClanahan got pulled in this for back tightness, I think, in the 3rd or 4th inning, and that's not great for Tampa there. That They've already got a couple of guys, right, with Seymour that they're trying to figure out. Do we bring in a starter? Do we do?
Right.
Listen, nobody does that whole bulk relief thing better than Tampa and Kevin Cash there. But if McClanahan's going on the show, if this is some sort of long-term, that's a problem for Tampa here, I think, as well, as they try to lock up the American League East. And, you know, I think there's a big difference between Tampa hosting a playoff series
100%.
and having to go to road to Yankee
100%.
Stadium, right?
100%, Joe. That you hit the nail on the head with that. Who has the most wins in the American League at home in baseball this season? Who has the second most wins at home in all of Major League Baseball? Tampa Bay. They know how to play there. I don't know why. I don't know exactly how it works. Do they know how the turf works and bunting and in the outfield? Maybe. Maybe they've got the secret sauce there at the Trop. I don't know. But the facts are the facts.
Roof.
Texas. The new roof. It's dark now, by the way. You can't see through it anymore.
I know. It's crazy.
I was there earlier this year. So I think, you know, look, the way that it's Joe, they just took out the Rangers like no problem. You know, like they're just, they went to Boston, they got hammered, but then they get back to the Trop and they win. So it's a rare team where I agree with you. The Rays need to try to get the 1 seed. Or the 2, like they can't fall beyond that and all of a sudden have to open up and play maybe somewhere else. So I don't know what their plans are. So their plans, Joe, generally will be different than some others because they're the kind of team that's going to make like creative moves here. But I don't see them taking on like big salary for 1 year like that. I don't see. So you know what would they do? Like even though Matt Chapman's not playing on San Francisco. And Caminero plays third. Let's just use that contract as an example because that's not going to happen. Like, I don't see them taking that kind of player with 4 more years and $20 million a year. No. So they'd be looking at creative bullpen pieces. Maybe, you know, May is actually a good example of a guy they probably could bring in and have him pitch 4 or 5 innings at a time and then go to that bullpen, use an opener, use a closer too. So that's kind of what I expect from the Rays, but that's a great point by you. They absolutely have to be at home. And by the way, I would take them at home in the first round of the playoffs too. I think they'll win.
And don't forget, it's a new ownership group too, by the way, in Tampa. So they're not trying to run to Montreal. They're going to get their new stadium. It looks like somewhere in Tampa, downtown Tampa, over by where the Bucks play. So maybe they'd be willing to spend a little something here to make a run at this. We'll have to see, though, as Game Time Decisions continues on the Grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now when the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Here we go. Game time decisions on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as we had a handful of afternoon baseball games already in the books. We got 6, I believe, still to come here this evening. Going to be the Marlins and the Mets. You got the Pirates, Reds. We got the Red Sox and the Athletics wrapping up their series at Sutter Health Park. The Nats and Braves at Truist. You got the Giants going up against the Padres and the Mariners and Dodgers in the final game of that set there. And I do think the Red Sox is in. Now, Red Sox, I believe, when they leave Sacramento, and again, we watched another game last night, kind of do or die for the Red Sox, happened late. But, I mean, where are the runs? And do they realize it's Sacramento, it's 92 degrees in a ballpark, that elevates the run scoring by about 7% across Major League Baseball. And the Red Sox nor the Athletics can seem to get anything more than 4 runs across. Sonny Gray you want to talk about a guy, I don't know if you had him on the bingo card being 12-2 at this point in the season wins. Here, Craig. I did not see that, no. But we're still putting totals up in double-digit range. I think the runs have been suppressed a little bit for a reason. And the Red Sox, I think, have the Dodgers coming up next.
That's right. Yeah, I was going to say, that's the mega series of the weekend. Red Sox Dodgers this weekend. In fact, if you think about it, with the way that the alignment is in Major League Baseball, the American League, like the Red Sox, they'll visit LA this season and then they won't go next year. So you would imagine a lot of Red Sox fans will be in LA to watch that series play out this week. And maybe, look, I think that teams know what they're going to do come next week already, as we talked about yesterday. But make no mistake about it, the Red Sox can make a major statement. Nobody has really shined against the Dodgers this season when you think about it. There have been teams that have won series against them. Of course, they're not going to win every series. But nobody's really come out of there with me thinking that anybody's going to beat them at the end of the season. I don't see that team that has happened for. So would be imperative for them to get that win tonight. I think they will. I can't believe the A's are 17 games under 500. A month ago, everyone was saying, oh, the A's, how special, how nice. They're a good team. 17 games under 500. What happened to them? They're brutal. So I do expect the Red Sox to win tonight. I probably would even go the minus 1.5. I think eventually Red Sox bats will break out. They'll get Roman Anthony back. They'll get Ranger Suarez back. They'll get Garrett Crochet back. Doesn't look like Meade will come back, who they just got. And then they have been, without a doubt, Joe, not just with Miami, the Boston has been, it seems like, the most talked about trade deadline team thus far. Skubal, the most talked about name, but the Red Sox, to me, it seems like every time I'm going on social media or I'm going to any baseball talk, everyone's talking about what the Red Sox are going to do. Maybe they have the most holes, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do, Joe, because I'm not convinced the Red Sox are going to make the playoffs. They had that great run, but I'm not positive about that. I don't know if what we saw was real there. So interesting dynamic going on there.
I mean, here we are on July 30th. On July 1st, the Red Sox were 11 games under 500.
That's crazy.
Sonny Gray was guaranteed to be traded, right?
Yeah, and Chapman.
At that point, he was going to be on the trade. That Chapman, everybody was going. And then they have now won, 19 of 22 this month. They got an opportunity to win tonight, right? So to rattle off 20 wins in their last 23 games after being 11 games under 500. Now they're talking about extending Sonny Gray, maybe giving him an extension and keeping him there. I just don't see. I mean, what am I missing with him? I mean, he's been great. Don't get me wrong. He's coming off looking to bounce back here in one spot against Toronto, I think it was. Got him last time out, but you're not. He's 36 years old. Are we really extending him now, Boston? Is that the direction we're going? But you can't argue with the results, and the results for the last month. Great. And you saw this. 20 wins in June put the Marlins in a whole different category, right, Craig? 20 wins in July have now completely changed the direction of the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah,
but
it's
my
true.
question, and we talk about this all the time, did you peak too soon here, Boston? Because
It's a fair question.
The peaks and valleys are a mess here right now.
Yeah, they're feeling great, and look, there was so much pressure on them to win. I mean, Trevor Story's another name; he's hurt too. So they do have a lot of players that can come back, and they should fight. And truthfully, in their defense, the American League is brutal; it's awful. So they really do have a chance, I think, to make the playoffs. Boston's not like some of these other teams like Arizona or Miami or Pittsburgh, where it's like you're wondering, will they go, will they not? I fully expect Boston to try and get in and then just, feel like it's the NCAA tournament, and then they could probably think that they could beat everybody. But I question that. I don't think so. And again, nothing against Sonny Gray, who's had a phenomenal career. I mean, think about the A's and the Reds and the Yankees, right? Didn't he pitch on the Yankees too? Like, he's pitched on so many different teams. It seems like he's been good everywhere that he's gone, and he never gets any credit. But he's your game one starter as it stands right now in the playoffs, Joe. Who is going to, if it started today, are you kidding me? With no Suarez and no Crochet, you think the Red Sox are going to win a series? I don't think so. I think a few weeks ago, with them as hot as they would, they'd beat anybody. They were rolling everybody, rolled Tampa Bay. But I just don't see them getting this hot again. I think they'll win tonight. They could even play well a little bit in LA, but without getting, to me, massive help. I don't think that this is a team that's built to go very deep into the postseason. In fact, between those three teams in the American League East, Tampa Bay, New York, Boston, I think Tampa Bay has the better shot of the three of going deep. Best shot.
I agree. I think you can only go one way from here for Boston, and I don't think it's going to be good, because even Boston realized they needed help and they needed a bat, and then that bat got one at bat and then breaks his wrist, and now he's out. So not great there for the Boston Red Sox. By the way, Nick Kurtz gets hurt again last night. Likely not in the lineup for the A's tonight. Oh, man. So
yeah, take Boston tonight. Yeah, take Boston tonight.
I think Boston run line might be the call of the night there in that one. Yeah, 1.5 might not be a bad way to go. And I'm looking forward to that weekend series against the Dodgers. I think that's a litmus test, one that will give us a pretty good idea, give the Red Sox a pretty good idea where they stand on the hierarchy of things here. But the Dodgers did it again last night, 4-2, although they kind of led from what did I say yesterday? I wanted to go out, get that second mortgage, and fade Lauer. And what does he do? What did the Dodgers? They won another one of his starts last night. It's unbelievable. Game time decisions continues here on the grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
it's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we look to wrap up this first hour together. We got more Major League Baseball games coming your way here tonight. Boston at the Athletics. Dodgers looking to wrap it up against Seattle before, once again, Boston comes to town for a pretty fun weekend series there. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better for the Dodgers, Craig, they got guys like Aaron Lauer they sign off the street, couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat, couldn't get anybody out with Toronto. Dodgers pick him up, and now it's 10 of his starts they have won for him, 4-2 last night. So you got to hand caps off. Whatever's going on there, it's what change of scenery. I guess it's working for the Dodgers. No matter what they touch lately, seems to turn to gold, does it not?
Yeah, and the other thing too with the Dodgers is that, man, like the rumors. And look, I pay attention to everything. I don't take everything very seriously because, again, being an insider and being involved in this for so long, I've learned and understood that there are some people, including us, that are getting paid to talk about this stuff. So you have to have like some content, and you need clicks, and you need people to go to your website. But a lot of discussion, Joe, about Skubal and the Dodgers, a lot in the last 24 hours. He wants to go there after the season. Will the Dodgers make the deal now? Man, I mean, that's like, it's disgusting in a way. It kind of makes me feel like if he is healthy and he ends up there, what are we even doing anymore? Like at that point, the Dodgers are going to be such a prohibitive favorite to win the World Series, and anything can happen. And in sports, you never know what in the NBA this year, we saw so many upsets, and in college basketball, you see so many upsets, but Snell and Yamamoto and Skubal in like a 1-2-3 game, I mean, put Snell at the end, but in a playoff scenario, and then Ohtani coming in out of the bullpen, and then Edwin Diaz coming in to save it. Like, how are you going to beat that team, Joe? Like, will they lose a playoff game? Like, it's disgusting to me if that happens.
And you know what? It's just going to turn a lot of people off, but it's the reality of it. They can do it. They're not afraid to do it. And a lot of what, again, we've been kicking this can down the road for a long time, but the idea of the Dodgers handing out the kinds of contracts that they have been has kind of maybe pushed this issue to the forefront, this CBA. No, Craig, when you're spending, $250 million on the Kyle Tuckers of the world, right? It feels like that was just the last straw there, and the rest of the owners are like, enough is enough here already. And if they land Skubal, I mean, because they'll figure out a way to extend him if they're given the opportunity. They'll lock him up, sign him up, and be good to go.
Yeah, that I don't agree with. I think that he goes to free agency no matter what. I don't think any extension will be signed. Okay. I don't know if that's what you meant. I think maybe you meant just he goes to free agency and they sign him. Yes, that's absolutely possible. But no, I don't. I mean, he's Scott Boras. There's like a 0% chance of that. I think he 100% goes to free agency. Could he end back with LA? Yes, but we don't know what a new collective bargaining agreement will look like. We don't know if anyone will get an Ohtani contract or a Soto contract ever again. It may be capped out at $250 million. I mean, it's possible that's all. And which is nothing wrong with that. But it's possible that that's the most that Skubal could get in a new market with a salary cap. I don't know, but it would. And by the way, it may not even be the only move that they make too, Joe. Like if I, and it's sad to say, but if I am the Dodgers coming up to Monday, it's exactly what I'm doing. It's exactly what I'm doing. Like I am just poaching the entire market, building the ultimate 26-man roster to go into the postseason and say, you know what? We'll do your salary cap. and we'll do your salary floor. But let's have one more run at this before we get there.
Yep.
And I could see it, man. I could see it. I could absolutely see it happening. Offensively, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the market, Joe, for me. Maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of great offensive options out there right now. But pitching-wise, clearly, that's the guy to get at the deadline.
And you got to think, too, Craig, because if he's pitching for the Dodgers, you know what he's not doing? Pitching against the Dodgers,
Right.
Which is another thing the Dodgers would be looking at and saying, listen, we'll get him. We got no problem. Well, like, whatever happens next year is going to happen next year. But in the meantime, we're going to make sure Skubal's not going to somebody else.
That's why I mentioned the Braves. I think the Braves definitely will be in the mix, but they are very
Also
hesitant.
very good.
But they're very hesitant to trade young players for rentals. They really don't do that
point.
often. So I think we have to keep the Braves in the mix, but I told you, we've been talking about it. My sneaky team, you talked about it, to beat the Dodgers, Arizona would be my sneaky team to get Skubal.
Love it. More game time decisions, another hour next here on the Grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Here. Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now when the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right,
We're playing
welcome back
trivia.
in Game Time Decisions here on this Thursday. Another hour together, Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish. More Major League Baseball coming your way as we get you ready for 6 games on the night slate here. And it's going to kick off just after the top of next hour there with Citi Field. The Marlins taking on the Mets. An interesting one with Washington and Atlanta, I think, is also going to be a fun game here tonight. The Great American Small Park there in Cincinnati. The Pirates and the Reds for a little central battle. That should be fun. Then a couple of West Coast games. Giants, Padres. You got the Red Sox, the Athletics, and then the Dodgers hosting the Mariners. And we were talking, of course, about the Dodgers and all the rumors about, well, you know what? Tariq Skubal likely going to be available. Dodgers likely going to be in the market for another starting pitcher. And you had just mentioned to me, Craig, that I forget Scott Boras is his agent. So now I know why Detroit's like, well, we're never signing him. That's not going to happen.
No, it's never happening.
He's coming as a free agent. And I had said, well, the Dodgers will just sign him simply so he's not pitching against the Dodgers. But you made a comment about, well, the Dodgers might get him, but he's going to hit free agency one way or the other because it's Scott Boras. He may sign eventually with the Dodgers, but Scott Boras apparently doesn't do extensions. Is that what you were telling me?
No, he does not. He probably has. We probably could go back in the archives and find guys that he's done like rookie stuff with, where they get signed in there at the beginning. But there's only one player, to my recollection, that
I know it. I know it now.
You got it. You got it.
I got it.
Okay, we were playing. There was one guy. There was one, and he was going to be the best pitcher of all time.
Just hit me.
All time.
Just hit me.
Go for it.
Yep. Yeah. It's and by the way, I mean their
come on,
their
give us
spring training facility is right down the road from me. You know it exactly. You know what it was?
Am I wrong?
Craig gave me and said, think about Paul Skeens when Paul Skeens came in. This guy came in, same hype, same going to be the greatest pitcher, greatest strikeout pitcher, everything
of all time.
And then of all time, and that was Strasburg. It's got to be with the Washington
100%,
Nationals,
100%.
and he was. Although I could make the argument, as ironic as this is, I can make the argument that Patrick Corbin should have been the MVP of the Washington
Corbin was amazing.
Nationals.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it ended up ruining his career. But you're right. Strasburg, he had him from the time he came into the league. And at that point, I think Washington had more money than anybody to spend, right? And they weren't about, there was no way they couldn't sign him, no?
Right. Well, they thought it was a weird thing at the time that Strasburg signed that deal with Washington, because we were like, wait a second here. Why would he do that?
He was always hurt.
Right. And there you go. So, look, you hate to think salacious things about somebody, but I'm kind of thinking that when Strasburg sat down with Scott Boras may have said maybe for the first time, hey, buddy, like, you've had a hard time staying healthy. You've put together 2 healthy seasons, and because that's really all it was at that time. Why don't you go ahead and do this? And he did. And to Scott Boras' credit, and Steven Strasburg owes a lot to Scott Boras for making that happen, because I think after the extension he signed, I think he still was healthy for like one more year, and then things just completely fell apart. I think as of 2 years ago, he was still getting paid by the Washington Nationals. He hasn't pitched in a long time. In fact, his last start ever was in Miami. I was at that game that he pitched, and he got hurt again. So going back to, why are we talking about this? Because any team that Scooble ends up with, it is a rental, and not every team and every GM and president and owner believes in that. But Arizona is one of those. They got a few years ago, if you remember, JD Martinez, and he led them in the postseason. It was a great move for them. And I could see that happening. And then you look at some of the other teams. The Cubs certainly could use him. Their pitching has been rough, but the Cubs have been guilty every year, Joe, of really not doing a lot at the deadline, not doing enough at the deadline. It doesn't seem like before Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer now, it seems like they kind of play with who they have at the trade deadline. So the Dodgers are always that really aggressive team. Arizona's one. San Diego, they're always aggressive, but would they do something like that? Do they have enough guys to trade anymore for somebody like that? I don't think so. It's going to be fun. I personally, of course, am hoping that it's not LA. I would love for him to go to some team, Joe, that could go against the Dodgers in the American League. Tampa Bay, wouldn't that be a great spot for him if he ended up there? Maybe Texas, wouldn't that be a great spot? Maybe at least that gives them a shot too. But alas, the Poly Market and Kalshi tell us that it's going to be the Dodgers.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you are Detroit, okay, because Detroit still has leverage in this deal. Yes, he's going to be a free agent, but Detroit gets to decide whether or not they're trading him, right? I mean, they're the ones that get to decide what are you looking for if you are Detroit for a Tariq Skubal rental, knowing, he's gone next year anyway. So what are you looking for exactly in return?
You're probably going to end up getting the team's best prospect in their system. I think that's going to be it.
At least the top one.
Yeah, you're going to get their best prospect. Even though it is a rental, that's what's going to happen. So the Dodgers naturally have a few that they could offer. But a lot of the teams that are in it don't necessarily have the great prospect capital. Now, Ironically, the reason why the Red Sox are getting talked about so much, Joe, is because they have 2 or 3 really high-end prospects that it seems like they're dangling right now to get a little bit better. So maybe they are one. And, certainly Seattle, as we've heard, just some rumors about Emerson Hancock. I mean, he may be on Seattle's, in their rotation, their 3 or their 4. I mean, he's a potential ace for another team if he ends up getting it turned around or becoming better too. So, that's a good example, like him going to Detroit for Hancock. Like, I don't know if that's enough, but that's like the kind of thing that could potentially happen. But no, there's no team that would take him and prepare for next year. It would all be for the final 2 months of the season.
It would all be for a rental push. Yeah, it would
Doesn't
all be
feel
a
like
rental
the Braves.
Doesn't
feel like a Braves move.
Like you said, they don't
usually do that.
They don't part with young guys and young players in that farm system. Yankees don't have enough of them. We know that.
No, and the pitching is not their issue
Spencer
either.
Jones. I mean, I don't know.
Pitching is not their issue, and Jones is not good enough. Not even close to get that. I'd have to scour it. I hope we're surprised on Monday, but I have a feeling we're not going to be. But it is the right move for Detroit. We talked about that game yesterday. We were following it as we were doing the show here against Baltimore. And Baltimore came all the way to bat. It felt like the dagger. And I know that Detroit is still on Fangraphs mathematically 30% in it because a run for any team puts them in it. But they're going to look back, Joe, if they don't make the playoffs and still play just 500 baseball the rest of the season, that's not going to get them in. They're going to look back at the end of the year, and they're going to get that GM is going to be in huge trouble. Huge trouble in Detroit if he doesn't make this trade and they end up losing. Because this is the same GM that gave Framber Valdez a lot of money too. Don't forget that. And now it looks like that was a disaster too. So these signings and these sitting on your hands kind of deals, it can really cost you. And for Detroit, I just think it's the right move.
And I believe one of the things that is set to go away once the calendar turns and the CBA goes is that whole, they can make a qualifying offer if they lose them in free agency. That could be the idea of them getting a compensatory pick. That could be gone, right?
Yes. They want to get rid of it.
Yeah, so that's all of a sudden Detroit's under the gun now. So you either got to make them hurry up, you either got to trade them, or you got to hurry up and lose them in free agency along the way so you can get something in return. Because that won't be there come January 1st. I'm with you on that one there. So, listen, a lot of this all depends on who does really, really well this weekend and who puts themselves into a position to actually think they can make the postseason. I think the Padres are a fascinating study here over the next couple of days, but they got to get past the Giants again here tonight. Interesting matchup, pitching matchup. We'll talk about that when we get back as Game Time Decisions getting you ready here on the Grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in as we're getting you ready here. Game time decisions on the SportsGrid network. Plenty more Major League Baseball games just after the top of the hour. But one of the intriguing teams to me is over the next at least a couple of days until we get to Monday and the trade deadline is the Padres, who have finally, you want to talk about a team that woefully underperformed. A team with no front-end starter. And if this was the ownership group prior, they probably already would have went out and bought Skubal if they could have. But they've turned it around. And I got to give them credit here. I mean, Machado finally figuring out Tatis. They've got some guys in there. The back end of that bullpen is as good as any with Mason Miller closing it. Now, they did just handle business again. I think it was the Rockies. They ended up you saw them firsthand against the Marlins at home last week. Now they're at home. They got the Giants. They won yesterday, I believe, 3-1. So now what do we do with this Padres team who is rolling out King, Walker Buehler? I don't know how, but there are some. I'm a guy like Seth Lugo, who was already with the Padres. Does it not make sense if the Padres went out and got somebody like that, Craig, to help them make a stretch run?
Right. So the Padres right now, as it stands on FanGraphs, their odds are 22%. So they're sort of on the outside looking in on some of the other teams. But Joe, to your point, they were less than 10% a week ago. So they've really jumped up in terms of the odds. And so when their front office looks at it, they probably say, okay, we got a tough decision to make here. Are we good enough to win the World Series? No. Are we good enough to get to the NLCS? Probably not. So do we play for the wild card here? Because that's their only shot. In years past, Joe, with this record, and you mentioned the previous ownership, they would probably look and say, okay, we're 5 games behind LA. We're not going to win the division, but we still are alive in it. That's the difference this year, Joe. They have no chance of winning the division. So it's only for the wild card. How aggressive are they going to get when you're only playing to potentially go on the road for 3 games? I don't know the answer. I still don't think they have enough starting pitching. So if they do plan on trying to make a run at this, they're going to have to go out and get somebody, because it is bullpen day every day almost for the Padres, to me at least. So I don't know the answer, Joe. I really don't know. I know that Manny Machado came out the other day and he said that this is the same team we've had all season. It's just we're starting to play well. That's probably a fair statement. I think their hitting is definitely good enough, 1 through 6, 1 through 7. They're deep enough. And if they decided to go out and make a move, they're going to have to go back into that farm system again. It feels like they always do, and trade guys, if they still have it, to be able to get not just 1, I think 2 starting pitchers, Joe. I don't think they have enough starters. Not just to win in the postseason. I don't even think they have enough guys to get through the regular season right now. At least that's my view on it.
Yeah, they have. And listen, JP Sears, I think, is a fantastic find. He's on the mound for him here tonight, going up against the Giants. And, quietly, he has been money. The team can't score any runs, the Giants. But boy, oh boy, did Robbie Ray turn it around and figure it out. Finally, over the last 5 to 6 weeks. I mean, because early on, it was not good with the Giants, but his last 6 starts, no runs, 1 run, 1 run. His worst start was against Colorado in Colorado, and he only gave up 3 runs, Craig. But outside of that, no runs to Atlanta, no runs to the Athletics. I mean, you go down the list, he's been really, really good. Giants aren't going to be unloading anybody. At least not that doesn't have an expiring contract here. You want to talk about a guy that absolutely could help some teams here. But kudos to Robbie Ray flying under the radar. I don't see any runs I just don't know where the runs are coming tonight. And I like what I've seen from JP Sears. You saw him in person. Pretty impressive stuff, right?
Yeah, and not throwing 97, 98, just getting outs, and he's lefty. So I think you're probably looking at first 5 under, I would say, in at least the way that could play. And then if that happens, you jump back on, and you probably take the Padres at that point because you know they're going to get to that nasty bullpen, and that bullpen with Millers and Morahone and some of those others, they just don't give up any runs. So it'll look. It's kind of weird seeing the Padres being 2 games over 500, but only 20% on FanGraphs, and that sort of tells you they still have a lot of games with LA, and they have a tough schedule left, so it's not going to be easy. Yep. And then the other part of it too is that in the past, AJ Preller, Joe, all he had to do was call Peter Seidler, who passed away, or call Seidler family and say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and they just give him the keys, you know. And now they're gone. Yep. So I don't know. Like, this is the first deadline with sort of this new ownership group in place. What will they do? Will they say, okay, yeah, do whatever you want? Or will it have to be more measured? We're all going to find out together on Monday because there's never been a deadline that Preller hasn't gone all in. This would be the first one that he isn't. So, I mean, this is a guy that got Juan Soto, you know? So, yeah, we'll see.
It would kill him to have to sit on his hands at the trade deadline. That's for Definitely. Sure. By the way, Padres 30-19 this season against teams under 500. Third best record against losing teams in Major League Baseball. So the games they're supposed to win, they've won. It's the games where people go, that team's pretty good. Yeah, they have not. And again, I think that is where the starting pitching comes into play, because if you can't get to the back end of that bullpen because you're down 4 runs, it doesn't really do you a whole heck of a lot of good. But against bad teams, they've done a pretty good job here so far, that's for sure. I think that is going to be a fun series this weekend. Still divisional rivalry. You know what happens with that, Craig. It's as bad as the Giants have been. They did score, 13 runs yesterday? We watched them. Was it 16 runs, I think. So not a great hitter's ballpark, but the Giants don't play in a great hitter's ballpark either at Oracle. Petco is no different. I think it's going to be very interesting here to see what happens over the next couple of days with the Padres. And listen, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Dombrowski and the Phillies, because anytime your star player says, get us help, and the GM is like, yeah, you got all the help you need. Yeah, it's now Dombrowski is at the end of a contract anyway, is he not? I don't know that he's signed long-term with Philly, is he?
He is in the last year of his contract with Philadelphia, but it seems like from the comments the owner made is that he'll come back. And, you know, he's the president. The GM is Preston Mattingly, the son of Don Mattingly. So all this does make sense, and it makes sense why Donnie got so upset yesterday with those comments from Harper.
And you're right. He don't get upset either. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
it's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now, and the new coaching staff there
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as we got some updates for you here on the games set to go here tonight. We're understanding that Ohtani not in the lineup here tonight. We know he's not pitching, even though Dave Roberts tells us that, he's fine. He can throw tomorrow while he's not in the lineup tonight. Against Seattle, so keep that in mind. We got a rain delay, it looks like, in Citi Field, so that game, that game is going to be pushed back a little bit.
I gotta stay
I don't
up
know.
now late.
I was going to say, Craig, that's not good news for you,
Not
but
for
they
me,
are pushing
no.
that back to 8:30. It was supposed to be a 7:15, 7:20. Hour pushback, McLean versus Yuri Perez, and listen. The last time that happened, Toronto this week, and I believe it was Bieber on the mound, I think they delayed that game almost 2 hours, and he came out and walked 6 guys in the first inning. So you want to talk about creatures of habit. These kinds of, don't worry if it's a 2-hour delay, don't always work that well for everybody. And in fact, it was against Washington, who's taken on Atlanta. I think this is a fascinating weekend series here as well. Jake Irvin is off the IL. He hasn't thrown since May 23rd for Washington, another one of those injury guys. He's going up against Grant Holmes, who I'm waiting for a team to put Grant Holmes in his place. He's got great numbers, except a lot of those underlying metrics telling me there's some regression coming here with Grant Holmes, but he's been great for Atlanta, who's got all sorts of injuries. Atlanta at home, they average 5-6 runs a game. I mean, how are we not getting runs in this one here?
You would think so, and the Nationals pitching is not their calling card. It's been their hitting. They're number one in all of baseball with their hitting, and so that's a fair point that you would make. It's also interesting, like you mentioned, the White Sox are a surprise team in the American League. Well, let me ask you this, Joe. If you took the Washington Nationals and their record and you put them in the American League, guess who would be in the playoffs? It'd be the Washington Nationals. You know, it just shows you what kind of season Washington has had. You got to give them a lot of credit, too. They're not going to get it because they're in the NL and it's a little bit tougher. They're still in the wild card mix. Their percentages probably under 10% to make the playoffs. So I would guess the idea for them is probably to look toward next year. But I found it funny today, Joe. I don't know if you saw this. But there were some reports that said that the Nationals, instead of trading Foster Griffin, are looking to extend Foster Griffin. So let me explain to you why this is happening. Well, let me explain why this is happening now. It's to drive that price up right here at the deadline. They're trading this guy in 2 or 3 days. That's definitely happening. If they were going to extend him, don't you think they would have extended him already? You think they're going to run through this deadline on an expiring contract? No way. So true. It's a great move to put that news out there because it gets other teams to go, because he's, arguably, Joe, as far as left-handed pitchers are concerned, he may be number one available on the market right now. He's cheap. He's good. He doesn't throw 98, so he's going to be healthy the rest of the season. You think he is? I would take that guy and put him right there in my rotation, number 2 or number 3 on any team. He pitched great when he was here. I saw him pitch. He pitched great for Washington all season long. But come on, this is Joe. You know the messaging here. This is like if you are Houston. Let's use Houston. Houston calls Washington. Hey, what do you want for Foster? Oh, we're thinking of extending him. What are you offering? Oh, you're going to have to pick it up here a little bit because we may just keep him. Oh, stop. Washington's going to do the right thing here, and they're going to cash in on this guy too. I think that he's going to get. You're going to get. He's not Scooble, but you're going to get a lot back, I think, for Griffin. A great signing, by the way, for Washington. And by the way, they just got Connolly early from Boston, right? So it's not like they're really missing a ton. Early just goes into the rotation, and then Griffin goes to some other team to help them. And then if Griffin pitches well, he'll get a big contract in the offseason too. Works out well for everybody.
And they loved Jake Irvin, who was actually, he's had some control issues in the past, but he pitched actually pretty well in April and May before he ended up going down on a 60-day IL. But getting a guy like that who misses a lot of bats, getting a guy going like that in there, and like you said, they have maybe an embarrassment of riches for them that they can take a guy who costs nothing and get the world for him at the break and still get some pitching in return because – listen, Atlanta right now, 6.5 games over Philly in the National League East, right? Washington, 8.5 games behind the Braves. And I think they're tied with Miami, but both
tied,
are just 2 games out of that final wild card. So, this is a big series for Washington versus Atlanta. It's big for Miami against the Mets, too.
Of course.
But most of the guys that we're talking about who might would be traded whether they win or lose these games.
Agreed.
Is what you're
100%. 100%. I know it doesn't affect Washington at all. For Miami, I mean, look, I suppose on Monday, Joe, you can ask me if the Marlins go 4-0 against the Mets this weekend, which I don't think is going to happen. But if they were to go 4-0, we can revisit that conversation. But beyond that, I think both teams have determined exactly what they want to do.
All right, we got more game time decisions straight ahead here on the grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Game time decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish here as we got about 30 minutes or so before the top of the hour. That's when we'll get 3 of those Major League Baseball games starting. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. And I'm sorry, Miami and the Mets has been moved back to the 8:30 time frame there. A little bit of weather at Citi Field. But Washington and Atlanta for sure at that time. And we were just talking here, Craig, that, listen, Washington tied 2 games out of the last wild card spot with the Marlins. They are playing. And do they play the Marlins anymore, Craig, the rest of the way?
I think they have to, but I maybe 3 more. I'll take a look while we're talking.
Is one more series there? Listen,
yeah,
6.5 games is all the Braves are ahead of Philadelphia, 8.5 ahead of Washington. The Braves lead is not the Dodgers or the Brewers, safe to say, right? Anything is possible here.
Well, look, I would say I'm checking the schedule for you. I would say for Atlanta, in fairness to Atlanta, nothing against Miami, but they have to feel pretty good right now, Joe. They've built this lead, and Philly looks like a disaster, you know. So with everything that's going on, like if you're Atlanta, you're sort of feeling like, okay, like the Marlins just swept Philly, you know, in Philly in Miami. So it's not that Philadelphia can't catch Atlanta. I feel so much better about Atlanta winning that division than I did a week ago. I don't know. The Phillies are not playing good baseball. So Miami. Okay, let me see here. Miami plays Washington one more time, and they play them at home the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of August. I don't know that that's relevant. Miami plays Atlanta next week. They still play Philadelphia. And Miami plays Washington and Washington too. So yeah, so they have matchups left. Miami still plays
all of these teams are playing
Miami
who
still
they
plays
have to beat.
Joe. The Marlins play the Cubs six times. They play the Cubs 6 times. Yeah, so there's and Arizona. So yes, that's exactly right. Everyone is still going to play everyone.
Yep.
But we don't know what these teams are going to look like in a week, and on Monday we'll know a lot more. We'll have a much clearer picture of that. But based on what's happened this season, it's expect the unexpected. The Cubs win 10 in a row, they lose 10 in a row. Marlins win a bunch, they lose a bunch. It's whoever is going to get hot in September. It's like the NCAA tournament. Whoever gets hot in March is going to end up going to the playoffs. And I think we're probably headed there again. Last year we would be sitting here and talking about how Detroit. They're good. They got great pitching. They're going to go far. And then Cleveland out of nowhere won 10 games in a row and won the division. So September really, unfortunately, is the determiner usually here.
Yeah, it really comes down to that. And these are some young teams, too, here. But I do think we could see some new teams, new blood in the postseason that we have not seen before. I mean, okay, Dodgers, Yankees, we get it. Braves, all right, yeah, snooze fest. But can the Astros make it back? You said it.
Maybe.
The American League is a total disaster of 500 teams. It's not good. But, man, it would be great if you could get a White Sox in there for the first time.
Happen.
And I think Pittsburgh also. Where would Pittsburgh be if they were in the American League? I mean, that's because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, true. I think the only development, at least in my opinion, that's happened trade deadline wise over the last 24 hours is Toronto. I think for me, that's the team that just has to look in the mirror and say, I mean, you got Tampa ahead of you, got Boston ahead, you got the Yankees ahead. Like, when you really think I just don't think Toronto has any chance, Joe, this year. Even though the AL stinks, I just don't think so. Guerrero, it's going to be a wash season for him. He's having a terrible season. Their pitching hasn't been as good. Sometimes you just got to know who you are. It's really hard in that market because they're coming off a World Series. They spent a lot of money again, but I just don't think it's happening for them. So I would be curious where George Springer goes. I think he could help a team a lot. And, they have some other assets. Yeah, Bieber. They have some assets to trade. So I think Toronto, it's just too, even though they won, I think yesterday, the day before, whatever, I think time is up for them. I think they have to reset for next year.
Yeah, I would not, under any circumstances, trade Max Scherzer, though. If I'm Toronto, you got to build around Max Scherzer still being on this roster for some reason to eat up the innings there.
Max Scherzer.
All right.
I think he threw 2 innings and 100 pitches.
You're good to go. Yeah, just keep him at 2 2/3 innings. Nobody does it better than he does. We got some interesting NFL news. We'll talk more NFL with you guys coming up, but and we just saw this, Craig and I come across that the 49ers, if their coach isn't getting into very strange accidents that are never reported, yet he's calling reporters into his office without cameras to tell everyone how he was at fault of it. The whole thing is extremely weird. But Ricky Pearsall, I believe, now hurt. Now, Craig, you're not going to believe it.
That's a serious
49ers,
one. Yeah.
That's a serious one. there's some conversation about possibly bringing Deebo Samuel back to the 49ers now. It's not a bad, same system, not a bad idea, at all. But what is with the 49ers and injuries? Like they just can't keep. Kittle's still coming back from an injury, right? This year. I mean, the defensive side's a mess, but hopefully they get those guys back by the time, let's say October. But Ricky Pearsall's a big loss here for them.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it seems like whenever he plays, Joe, he's really good. It's just, it's rare. And of course, Ayuk, I think Ayuk is still on the team, but he's on social media yelling at everybody every day. So I'm not really sure. Yeah, I don't see him playing for them. But you know what I forgot, Joe? And I'll probably still forget until they play the first game of the season. I'll keep forgetting every day. Is that they have Mike Evans. I keep forgetting that. Mike Evans is on San Francisco.
Yes.
And so that's a big ad, you know?
Mike Evans is great if you've got other options to distract you from Mike Evans being on there. The problem is if you got a bunch of nobodies on there, Mike Evans gets double and triple team. It's not going to matter. Mike Evans isn't going to make a difference for you.
Yeah, you're right.
Listen,
Evans has had
Mike Evans was the
Godwin and the others. He's had a lot of other guys. That's true.
You need and again, Kittle may not be ready, in September, so they're still bringing him back. The injuries just keep piling up. I will say this: reports coming out with Denver, the first time they've had a chance to see Bo Nix back on the field. Multiple, they're saying, procedures to repair that right ankle this offseason. Who'd have thunk it, right? We learned after the game, oh, yeah, by the way, he broke his ankle in like the second quarter or something. Like he was just crazy. Played the whole. That was nuts. But he's out there moving around. Guys say that now pads don't happen until I believe next week. But so far, he's moving around, looks pretty darn good there. And the other big thing coming out today, there is a big quarterback battle in Cleveland, if you can believe that. And Shedeur Sanders with Deshaun Watson, which is hilarious. But Deshaun Watson is apparently, and even on the predictive markets there, Craig, it's a lot of people. The prices keep going up towards Deshaun Watson being the starting quarterback. So who shows up at practice today but good old Deion Sanders? Look at that price right there. Minus 215 for Deshaun Watson to be the starting quarterback in week one. That has to be strictly contract driven, right? That's just because you're paying him $200 million that you got to. I think so. You have to play him, right? Otherwise,
I think so. But truthfully, as bizarre as the whole Sanders thing was, because I definitely thought he should have played more last year. He wasn't great either. So
no,
I may side with the Browns on this one and think, take your last gasp here with Deshaun and see what you got. I'm okay with it.
Get Deion on the coaching staff. That's what I'm talking about. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
You
absolutely.
told you.
Gary. Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is. It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Here we go. Game time decisions on the Sports Grid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish. Couple of other news and notes coming out of camp here, Craig, today in the NFL. Looks like they're just giving contracts out. And Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints just cashed a big contract, 4-year extension, $132 million. Is what they're saying. $90 million in guaranteed money, which is awesome. But I mean, what a year he had. 1,163 yards, 8th best in the NFL, 9 touchdowns. And they had a rookie, albeit he's like 26, 27 years old, but they had a rookie quarterback in Tyler Shaw. And let's be reasonable here, man. I think Olave is a superstar in the making. I think they got the right coach in New Orleans. I think they found something here in the quarterback position. I think the Saints, very much so in that division, could be pretty good here this year.
Yeah, it kind of feels like what has happened in the NFL is you're allowed to hit the reset button, Joe. Like, 10, 15 years ago, if you hit the reset button in the NFL, you were allowed to be bad for, would you say, 2 or 3 years, and then you had to be good again, and then you're in trouble. Now in the NFL, you're allowed to be bad for 1 year. That's it. You're allowed to rebuild for 1 year, and then if you're not, you're getting fired in year 2. It's crazy how that's worked. So like Miami, as an example, they're in rebuild mode this year, so they're allowed to stink, but then next year they're going to have to be good. So New Orleans is that team, Joe. New Orleans last year was in a rebuild, and they were pretty bad, right? They were a really bad team. And now I think the pressure is back to win. So you see some contracts being extended. You see Olave, who's a really good player. They'll give Shuck another chance to start. I thought he was good enough. But I don't know. Where would you? He's a bottom 10 guy, I would say, going into the season in the NFL. But they've got some decent pieces. They played well there. You're right. Why can the Saints compete? Because the division, generally speaking, isn't very good. 9 wins. You feel like you have a really good shot to win. Tampa Bay in September. Baker's an MVP. Saints are going to the Super Bowl. Then all of a sudden the Bucks fell apart too. So yeah, you're right. Could I see the Saints winning 9? I don't know what their total is. I'm going to guess their total is, without looking at it, I'm going to guess their total is 7.5. That would be my guess going into the season. Chris, you'll have to check that for me and see how good I am at setting the lines.
I believe it was 9.5. I believe it was a little 8.5. Sorry. Saints were 8.5. Tampa was, I also believe, was 8.5. And you said it though. Listen, 7.5 is what the Saints are now. Yeah. 7.5. Tampa, who a lot of people think is still going to compete, and I don't see how. Baker Mayfield shows up at camp today, and he's basically in front of the microphone ripping the organization, going, the time for negotiations is over. They disrespected me. You can't have a franchise quarterback in the building, tell everyone on and then wait for this to drag out. So I don't see how that is going to get any better unless they pay him. And it doesn't feel like Tampa feels like they're in this 1-year moratorium where they're just whatever they have. Vita Vea comes out last week and says, get me out of here. You got your quarterback going, get me out of here. They're not. It feels like you want to talk about a lame duck, and I love Todd Bowles, but it just looks like Tampa is more than happy not to invest in any of these, right?
Agreed. And, we may see this a little differently on Baker Mayfield. So I don't think that Baker Mayfield is gonna put have a bust in Canton. That I don't think. But I think because the state of quarterbacking, Joe, is so bad in the NFL, I think the Bucs absolutely should be paying Baker Mayfield, because what are you gonna do without this guy?
Right.
Like, if you said, okay, is Baker Mayfield a top 5 quarterback? Of course not. Is he top 10? But then you're right there. And there are 30 teams in the NFL, and he is an upper third guy in the league. And upper third guys, Joe, make $40 million a season. The Dolphins paid $40 million, So
yep.
they have no choice. You are not going to find a better guy in the draft via trade. It is not going to happen. He's an upper echelon quarterback in the National Football League, and I don't blame him. He's played like it. Did he regress in the second half of last season, Joe? Of course he did. He was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the betting sites in April and May, it's baseball. In September and October, he was the favorite to win the MVP for a while, and then the wheels fell off a little bit.
Yep.
To your point, I think on the betting sites, the number one coach to be fired starting the season, I don't know if it's Todd Bowles, but he's going to be in that conversation. You're 100% right. He is right there. It feels like the Bucs are in sort of this let's feel things out season.
Wait and see.
Wait and see until at the end of the season they end up going 7-10, something like that, and then they let's call it crazy. Let's get crazy. Then they rehire John Gruden to be the head coach again, something like that. It feels like that's the direction we're headed here.
Yeah, they're going to bring Tony Dungy back and see what happens here.
Doesn't it feel like they could do something like that, though? It feels like to me like they would do something like that.
So let me add from that perspective, because I get it from Baker's point of view, right? He signs a couple of years ago, a 3-year deal. He's in the final year of that deal, right? In his time there with the Bucs, he's 27-24, right? He did lead them to the playoffs, right? As the NFC South champion, and 23-24, right? So 2 seasons, he was a Pro Bowler. I get it. Averaging about the contract that he's gotten, about $33.33 million, which I'm going to give you some names. It's 16th among active quarterbacks right now. It's a little below, but he's in the same category as Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. Is he
I think he's better
than those guys?
I think he's better than those guys. Yes, I do.
Okay, so there you go.
Well, in my opinion, I'll give you another example. If I told you could only have 1 or 2 guys, and you could have Baker Mayfield or Trevor Lawrence, who would it be?
Oof.
It's close. Maybe you would say Lawrence, but close.
I'd rather have Craig Mish.
No, you would not. I'd be on my back.
No,
I'd be like, oh. You may take Lawrence. You may take Lawrence, but it's kind of close. Team. Right, but it's kind of close. So, and look at how much money Trevor Lawrence is getting paid. Baker Mayfield deserves it. Baker Mayfield should be a paid top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Is he?
3 years
probably
ago,
not.
he was backing up. He was the 3rd stringer on the Rams.
In the Rams.
Game time decisions continues.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
They come in a lot more better prepared to play than, say, we did, having to learn some of the things that we learned coming into the NFL that we weren't learning in college. A lot of these kids are getting quarterback coaches, as far back as junior high school and all the way through high school into college. So I think the position is a lot more stronger than it's ever been.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Here we go. Game time decisions on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish. Boy, it feels good to talk some football here. Camps opening up. We got drama with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. We've got, by the way, the Giants got a bit of good news as well today, Craig, because believe it or not, Malik Neighbors, who we heard a couple of months ago, oh, boy, the rehab is not going well. He may not even be ready for well, it turns out he's not on the physically unable to perform list. He's actually out, and they expect him to be with the team starting next week. And that is great news because Malik Neighbors, I think, is that if I'm Jackson Dart, I am bubble wrap him, put him in the corner, all good to go, get it going. It just feels like Ken Harbaugh put together a lot of young guys, a lot of different personalities rolling on that team. I think Harbaugh is the right guy for that job, but Baltimore ain't New York media. So this is going to be a very interesting season for, I think, Harbaugh and the Giants. No?
Yeah, the one I'll take exception to one thing a little bit. You're right about the media, that I will say. But I would also say, Joe, it kind of feels like the NFL is sort of state-run media now. It doesn't feel like the media matters that much in the NFL. Yeah, your access to the locker room is now so limited to what it was 10, 15 years ago. The chances that you have to stir it up as a media member, those days are kind of gone. In baseball, you still have that access. And in the NBA, you get to shoot around, and hockey, the skate around. You really don't get access to the players like you used to in the NFL. So I don't know that the media is a huge factor for a guy like Harbaugh. He's also been around a long time. So but the difference is that when he got to Baltimore, he didn't really have expectations, and then he rose them up. The expectations now, because of what has happened, and he signed that mega deal with New York. I think that's why, is that he's one of the highest paid coaches now in the NFL. After letting go by the Ravens. But it was funny, we were talking before the break, and just to sort of drive the point home that the league is so crazy from year to year. Used to be you build for 3 years and it's a system. And you're talking about Malik Neighbors being hurt. What, Joe, if I would have told you we were sitting doing these shows in August 2 years ago, and I told you that Deebo Samuel would not be on a team, and Stephon Diggs would not be on a team, and Tyreek Hill would not be on a team. And we're literally 2 years ago, you would have said, you're out of your mind. These are like the three of the best 5 wide receivers in the NFL. The league, the amount of pressure on these teams, and these, like, if you are a sliding player in the NFL and a fading player, you basically don't get signed. So there are still some players out there that,
what have you done for me lately? Impact.
It is. You just fall apart, and you're kind of done. Your career's kind of over just so fast. So we that's why we're mentioning Pearsall, maybe Deebo Samuel, someone else. We looked it up, and Christian Kirk is there, and Demarcus Robinson is there. I think the 49ers probably feel like they have enough, but I do think that we will have probably another wacky year like we always see in the league. And, certainly there's injuries every year in training camp. Now, we've seen less the last couple of years injury-wise because teams aren't playing their players in the preseason at all anymore. And they're only playing them in these joint practices, Joe, a little bit. And that's like the joint practices that you'll start to hear about, that's the preseason now in the NFL. When they have those, the guys play in that, and then they don't play in the actual games. But still, you have to pay $100 a ticket. Go figure that one. So that's kind of where we're headed here with the preseason coming up.
Yeah, well, which, by the way, the 6th of August, Craig, would that be what, next Thursday?
Next Thursday or Friday.
Is that what we got?
Thursday.
Next Thursday? Yeah. And that's your Hall of Fame game, folks.
That's your 5 minutes of getting very excited. 5 minutes, turn it on. Wow, football's back.
Yes.
And then we're like, who are these guys? And then we off to baseball.
How did they land with the Panthers and Cardinals, though?
Yeah, that's true.
I have no idea.
Is somebody going in the Hall of Fame from those teams? Usually that's the way that it works. There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Luke Kuechly and Fitzgerald.
That's always
2 guys
what it is.
more than worthy. Yeah, more than worthy of going there.
Absolutely. Both guys, 100% Hall of Famers. Yeah. Kuechly
University
too,
of Miami, Luke Kuechly, no?
No.
Wasn't he he wasn't a Miami guy?
No, definitely not. Yeah.
BC. That's right. He was BC. Yep, Boston College.
Yeah, but Kuechly retired
he's running
early.
the front office now, isn't he? Isn't he running a front office?
Is he with Carolina?
I think he went.
I don't know. Maybe.
I think he ran right to the front office there, and you're too many.
I know he retired,
there,
but
goodness.
yes, the concussions ended his career, and then Larry Fitzgerald basically played at a super high level from beginning to end with his career. Like only the last year of his career.
Unreal.
Larry Fitzgerald. Kurt
how many
Warner?
would he have won with Tom Brady? Like how many would he have won with Tom Brady? Yeah, Carson
he
Palmer.
did get to the Super Bowl with. He did get to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner.
And he
I remember
lost to Neil
Fitzgerald.
Awful. That's just awful. I don't even want to hear it. Craig Mish, always a pleasure. In-game live game day continues here on the grid. Enjoy.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
They come in a lot more better prepared to play than say we did, having to learn some of the things that we learned coming into the NFL that we weren't learning in college. A lot of these kids are getting quarterback coaches, you know, as far back as junior high school and all the way through high school into college. So I think the position is a lot more stronger than it's ever been.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.